Black people deserve reparations. Yes, I'm dead serious. I'm not just saying this because I want to own up for our history of slavery. Although that is a fine reason to say we should pay reparations, I'm saying that because America has an outstanding debt to all Black Americans born in this country. We owe Black people, and I'm willing to bet you all have no idea how much. So I'm going to break it down for you. I'm not making only an emotional and moral argument here. I just think it's the logical thing to do. So if you're Republican, Democrat, and especially if you're white, please hear me out. White people are the largest demographic of people that oppose reparations. So you can head into the comments and call me a white traitor or a suck up to Black people or whatever you want. All I ask is that you hear me out first. I'm going to break down the history of this real quick so I can make sure we're on the same page. The vast majority of African Americans that are born in America are descended from slaves. I'm talking like 90%, a massive number. African Americans were enslaved for nearly 250 years, from 1619 to 1865. Over 2 centuries that an entire race of people was enslaved, and their descendants right now are your lawyers, your law enforcement, your teachers, and yes, they were once your president. But we abolished slavery, right? So what's the problem? Bro, so much. After slaves were freed nationwide, General William Sherman met with 20 Black pastors in Georgia and asked them one simple question: what do you want for your people? These pastors argued that they didn't want to live among white people because it would take years for racial prejudice to dissipate, and they wanted their own land that they can till by their own labor where they would be safe. Sherman agreed and signed Field Order 15. The order was supported by Abraham Lincoln, and it reserved 400,000 acres of land for freed slaves. That's all the way from South Carolina, like Charleston, to Florida. However, 4 months later, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, and not too long after that, Abe Lincoln's replacement, Andrew Johnson, revoked the order. After it was revoked, freed Black slaves were fucked. They had no money, no land, and were incredibly impoverished. Most ended up going back to working, the white man's land, and that was called sharecropping, and the conditions there were only slightly better than slavery. Some Black folks became landowners, but it was incredibly rare. It makes you wonder what would have happened if Lincoln lived. The racial divide in our country would be entirely different. Slavery doesn't end with sharecropping either. Legal slavery continued until the 1930s. It was called convict leasing, and to put it simply, Black folks would be arrested en masse on trumped-up charges, then have them working in the same fields, in the same conditions they had as slaves. So slavery didn't end in 1865. In fact, it's not even been 100 years since slavery ended. In fact, slavery still exists in our prison system today. But I'm going off topic getting into that. What's important to remember is that we enslaved Black people for centuries and had them build everything for us. And I mean literally everything. They built our roads, our buildings, our infrastructure. America is a land entirely built on slaves, and anyone who tells you different either doesn't know the truth or is lying. The Smithsonian was built by slaves. Harvard was built by slaves. The Capitol building was built by slaves. The White House was built by slaves. And so much more. It's not figurative. We literally owe the Black people in this country. We've got an outstanding bill to pay these people. We've said we're sorry and promised to pay multiple times, but every time we fuck these people over. We don't just owe the slaves that died, we owe their heirs. And we have paid out reparations to people before that have been damaged by things that are not their fault. And those payments go out to their heirs. Black people of today are absolutely still affected by racial injustice rooted in slavery. There is so much more to this argument, and I encourage you to learn more about the history of reparations and slavery if you're interested. But instead of focusing on that, I want to say something else. I don't think the reparations discussion will ever be solved logically. I think it will always have to come from the heart and explain why it's the right thing to do. And so I want to speak from the heart for a second. I was raised in the South, and I truly love this place. It's something that I don't talk about often because I think my friends would make fun of me for it, but I love it. I love back roads and country music and living in a small town. I love sweet tea, and I'm always blown away when I travel other places and they don't have... You know what I mean. I may not always act like it, but I really love this place. But here's the thing. I was raised to notice injustices and think critically, to respect authority, but not to revere it, not to let power get to your head and that greed will steal what truly matters to you. So why is it, when I look around at this place I love, all I see is that same greed, injustice, and unchecked authority everywhere? And it's being used to put these people down, time and time again. And I just can't shake this feeling I have deep down that we've done these people wrong. There's no two ways about it. I'm not supposed to be on this land. I am not supposed to be here because so many had to die for me to be here. And if I had to trade my existence to make those things right, I would. I don't deserve to be here, but I am. And slowly, I realize that feeling guilty about this does nothing. I'm not the one who made any of those decisions, but just like how black people have to wear the history of their ancestors on their skin, so do we. We are at fault. And that's why I think reparations is just the right fucking thing to do. And don't give me about the shit about that we can't afford it or it's not realistic. It is. So many people smarter than me have come up with plans for reparations that are realistic and affordable. It's not just about making the right decision. So many people can rest if we do this. The blood of our history can rest if we just do what's right. Thank you guys for hearing me out. Longer than usual. If you waited this long, you can head into the comments and call me a libtard if you want. And I'd love that. Peace, guys.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel once again. Now, the truth is finally out. Some of the palm-colored folks are waking up and not just whispering, but saying it loud and clear. No sugarcoating, no crumbs left behind. In today's episode, we are reacting to a clip of a white man who came out and publicly admitted what many have been saying for decades. Black Americans deserve reparation. And not only did he say it, he unpacked the history behind it with receipt. As an African, I have my own thoughts on the issue of reparation, and I'll be sharing that right after we watch this video. So kindly guys, I'm your host Dash Lifestyle. Watch this video till the end, then I'll be back with more comment. All credit go to the original creator of the video.
When white people in the United States balk at the idea of paying reparations to black Americans who descended from slaves, they disagree with the Bible. Reparations are a form of compensation or restitution made to those who have suffered injustice, particularly those in cases of racial inequality, discrimination, and slavery. The idea of paying reparations to black Americans is not a new one. It has been a topic of discussion for decades, if not centuries. However, it has gained renewed attention and support in recent years, following the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement and the growing recognition of systemic racism in American society. As a Christian, I believe that reparations are not only a matter of justice and equity, but also a reflection of God's character and values. In the Bible, we see numerous examples of God's concern for the oppressed, the marginalized, and the downtrodden. From the Israelites' liberation from slavery in Egypt to the ministry of Jesus among the poor and the outcast, we see a consistent theme of God's love for those who are on the margins of society. One of the key biblical principles that underlie the idea of reparations is the concept of restitution. In the book of Leviticus, we see God commanding the Israelites to make restitution to those whom they have wronged. Leviticus 6, 1-5 says, "If anyone sins and commits a breach of faith against the Lord by deceiving his neighbor in a matter of deposit or security or through robbery, or if he has oppressed his neighbor or has found something lost and lied about it, swearing falsely in any of all the things that people do and sin thereby, if he has sinned and has realized his guilt and will restore what he took by robbery when he got it by oppression or deposit that was committed to him or the lost thing that he found or anything about which he has sworn falsely, he shall restore in full and shall add a fifth to it and give it to him to whom it belongs on the day that he realizes his guilt. This passage emphasizes the importance of making restitution to those who have been wronged and not just restoring what was taken, but adding to it as a form of compensation. This principle of restitution can be applied to the issue of reparations to Black Americans who have suffered centuries of enslavement, discrimination, and systemic oppression. Another biblical principle that supports the idea of reparations is the concept of Jubilee. In Leviticus 25, God commands the Israelites to observe a Jubilee every 50th year, during which all debts are forgiven, all slaves to be set free, and all property to be returned to its original owners. This was a radical idea of economic justice designed to prevent the accumulation of wealth and power in the hands of a few and to ensure that all members of society had equal access to resources and opportunities. The idea of Jubilee can be seen as a model for reparations in that it seeks to address the root causes of inequality and oppression rather than just treating the symptoms. By forgiving debts, freeing slaves, and returning property, Jubilee seeks to create a more just and equitable society, one in which everyone has the opportunity to flourish. As a Christian, I believe paying reparations to Black Americans is only a matter of justice and equity, but also it is a reflection of God's values and character. Through the biblical principles of restitution and Jubilee, we see a model for how we can address the historical and systemic injustices that have plagued our society for far too long. While the issue of reparations is complex and contentious, I believe that as Christians, we have a responsibility to seek justice.
Why does a person that never was a slave deserve compensation from a person that never owned a slave?
Bank of America and much of the U.S. financial system were built on the profits from slavery, using enslaved people as loan collateral and even owning them when debts weren't paid. These same institutions, which grew into billion-dollar corporations from the slavery of our ancestors, continue to uphold systems of institutional racism that today prevent Black people from building generational wealth. The horrors of slavery didn't end with emancipation. They left deep scars that still shape the lives of Black people today. This inherited trauma, known as post-traumatic slave syndrome, is rooted in generations of violence, ripped apart families, and stolen identity. It continues to affect mental health, family relationships, and the overall well-being of Black people. The U.S. government has paid reparations to Japanese Americans interned during World War II and even Americans held hostage in Iran. Yet the only people paid for slavery were the slave owners for losing their slaves after the Civil War. The victims of slavery were never paid. Our ancestors were stolen and endured some of the most violent atrocities in human history. So white people in this country could build their largely unearned generational wealth that they still sit on today, while Black people have been systemically denied the right to build and pass down the wealth we fought hard to earn for generations. Because every single time we did build, for example, Black Wall Street in Tulsa, the whites burned down the entire town and slaughtered every single Black person that they could find. You stole our ancestors. You stole their labor, which made the U.S. an economic superpower. You stole their futures. You dehumanized, brutalized, and traumatized them. Then that generational trauma was passed down to their descendants, who you continue to traumatize and brutalize with your systems of oppression put into place to limit and prevent us from creating generational wealth. And you refuse to dismantle your systems of oppression because that would be admitting that white prosperity was built on Black suffering. But you still owe for the centuries of unspeakable atrocities, because reparations are not charity. It's an unpaid debt that you owe.
They will be getting their land back because white people are becoming more and more the minority as the years go on. They say by 2045, whites will be completely the minorities, because a lot of the old people are going to die off. People like myself aren't having kids because the economy. Yeah, there's more. There's actually more interracial relationships nowadays. So kind of in a way, white people will kind of go extinct of the American soil. And that's what Trump's plan, the Zionist plan, is to destroy the economy. Is their plan to have the indigenous people go away and make it more white? That's why he's bringing over the South African white people over here, all that stuff. Is they want to wipe out the indigenous people, but it's actually backfiring because the whites are going out. And the indigenous people are actually having more children than the whites. So yeah, they're eventually going to get their land back without having to do a thing.
I hope you have watched that video and you have listened to what white Americans, they have come out and telling their fellow folks to start giving out the black people their reparation. And I'm going to add some of the reasons to why the black people, they need this reparation, and to why black people, they deserve this reparation. It is not only the black Americans, also black people in their also in some of the African countries where slavery took place. Also, majority of them, they have been asking for slavery reparation. Until now, some of these colonizers countries, they have not yet paid reparation. So these are some of the reasons to why black people, they need their reparation. Black Americans need reparations because the harm done to them over centuries hasn't just been historical, it's been systemic, ongoing, and generation. Here are the key reasons to why reparations are not just justified but necessary. Slavery built America wealth but left black Americans with nothing. Yeah, that is true. Slavery built Americans wealth but left black Americans with nothing. For over 250 years, black people in America were enslaved, forced to work without pay. Under brutal conditions, their labor generated massive wealth for white families, corporations, and the US government, but black families were left with zero generation. So guys, you can see these are some of the reasons to why we black Americans, we are asking for slavery, because we are the ones who built this America. You can see for over 250 years, black people in America were enslaved, forced to work without pay. These are now supposed to pay. Right now, they are supposed to pay. And this slavery that they are paying, it is because they didn't pay us during slavery. So they pay. They need. They forced to work without pay under brutal condition. Their labor generated massive wealth for white families. So you can see the black people, that are the ones who made the white people to be rich. Yeah, so these rich families that you are seeing in the US, it is all because of the sweat and the hard work of the black people. Their labor generated massive wealth for white families, corporation, and the US government, but black families were left with zero generation. And it is true, the black families were left with zero generation, zero wealth. So let's go to the point number 2. The promise of freedom was broken. After slavery, black Americans were promised 40 acres and mule, a chance to start fresh. That promise was broken. Instead, they faced Jim Crow law, segregation, and violent white backlash whenever they tried to build anything for themselves. You can see, guys, the promise that the white people were giving, they promised to us to give us 40 acres of land and a mule, a chance to start afresh. That promise was broken. Instead, they faced Jim Crow laws, segregation, and violence white backlash whenever they try to build anything for themselves. Whenever black people they try to build anything in America, when they are almost becoming successful, the white people they will just come out and destroy it. And that's why they came out with Jim Crow laws and also segregation and violent white backlash. So that one I don't want to go much into deeper, but I hope you understand about that. And also systemic discrimination never stop. Yeah, systemic discrimination never stop. From dining black families access to housing and loans, to mass incarceration, to being denied fair access to education and health care, the U.S. government has maintained system that block black programs at every turn intentionally. So you can see the US government, it has created a system whereby they are blocking black programs. This is to tell you also, you remember when I came out and tell you that why is it black schools they are not being funded the same way the white people they are funding their own school? You can see the black schools they are being given low scores. You can see the black school, the people who are really funding the black school, it is the black parent that the ones who are really funding the black school, because they are not being given the same fund which the white people they are giving the white school. So let's go to point number 4. The racial wealth gap is real and massive. As of now, the average white family has So let me repeat, sorry for that. As of now, the average white family has 8 to 10 times more wealth than the average black family. Wow, that is massive. As of now, the average white family has 8 to 10 times more wealth than the average black family in America. That's not a coincidence. That's the result of centuries of exploitation, theft, and policy-based exclusion. Wow. So you can see some of the white families around 8 to they have wealth of 8 times black families and even 10 times black families. So you can see that it is a result of centuries of exploitation, theft, and policy. Now let's go to the point number 5. Reparation means justice, not charity. Yeah, reparation means justice. So for those white people who they have been denying to pay reparation, it is justice. So they need to pay for the damages they did to the black families, to the black people. I've been telling you that we are having so many families, black families, which they are still having scars of slavery, which they are still having memories of slavery. So this, it is not a charity they are doing. It is just to pay for the justice. They need to pay for the damages that they did to black families. So reparation means justice, not charity. Reparation aren't a handout. They are debt, or just like other group, e.g. Japanese Americans who were compensated for internment or Holocaust survivor. Black Americans deserve compensation for what was taken: labor, lives, freedom, land, and opportunity. So these are some of the things that these people they need to pay for, because they taken our lands, they took so many black lives, labor, freedom, and so many opportunity. So kindly guys, if you haven't subscribed, kindly subscribe, and also you can add more on the comment section. Let's interact more on the comment section. I've been your host, Dash Lifestyle. I hope you have learned something. This video was for educational purposes. I hope you have learned something. Kindly guys, remember to like, so that according to the YouTube algorithm can spread this video to a lot of people. Thank you so much, and God bless you.